Welcome back to Compass to College. My name is Faraz,
My name is Manaf.
and today we'll be discussing the top SAT resources, both paid and free, that you could use to get a higher score.
So we're getting this list from both our own experiences as well as information from surveys across a variety of SAT preparation communities. And so this allows us to bring you the most effective, important SAT resources, and we've just compiled them in this
Relevant.
spreadsheet here, and we'll link it in the description so you can access it and see it for yourself.
All right, our first resource is going to be Khan Academy. Now, this is quite a popular one because it's free and encompasses all the subjects covered and topics covered on the SAT.
So one of the big things about Khan Academy is that it's partnered with College Board, so it allows you to connect your College Board account, and so it imports your test scores, and with that you're able to see which topics you got wrong on your previous PSATs and previous SAT administrations, and so that's important in that it saves time, so you don't have to review the topics that you've already mastered as much. And so this we've already done a video about this one, so we're not going to go too in detail about it, but this is the first resource you should go to learn the topics on the SAT.
One thing that's important to consider is that Khan Academy also focuses on topic mastery. So they actually cut up the topics into small chunks. I think it's 5 questions each. So if you need help on one topic, but you've already mastered another topic, you don't necessarily have to do that. You could just focus on the topic that you need help with.
The next resource we'll be talking about is Dr. Rogers' Math Neighborhood. So this is a YouTube channel where this professor goes over a lot of SAT level questions. So over here you have SAT solutions grouped by exam. And so these are really helpful if you're having trouble with SAT math, because SAT math is very technique based. And typically, once you understand how to tackle a certain type of problem, you've essentially mastered that problem, because SAT reuses a lot of problem types, and so through going through these videos, you're able to understand how to tackle types of problems and get a good score on the math section of the SAT. So the next resource we'll be talking about is UWorld. So UWorld is a paid subscription service, which is rather unfortunate, but it's extremely useful because one of the big problems that many people encounter when studying for the SAT is the lack of practice material. And so this is kind of a result of there only being 10 practice tests, as well as those practice tests being your most important resource, since SAT is based on a special style. And so that style what makes it difficult, because they use psychological questions and the timing and everything. And so UWorld is one of the most accurate replicators that me and Faraz have both seen. We've seen a lot of different textbooks and things like that that offer practice tests, but none are really as replicative of the real exam as these. And so this question bank allows you to just grind through SAT level questions, and allows you to get used to them. And you can see, and they have good explanations as well to show you how to solve the problems. So they've got a few pricing tiers for different times. They also have a free trial, so look into that. This is the first resource I would recommend if you would like to start paying for resources, but you don't necessarily have to use it.
Yeah, one thing to also realize is that it's going to be quite difficult to increase your score substantially without adequate practice. A lot of people, what they do is they look at videos and explanations, math tutorials, etc., but they often lack practice. And so it's important that you guys practice, whether it be Khan Academy or Your World. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, the big problem with Khan Academy is it has limited number of questions. Once you run through those, you're kind of stuck, other than the official practice test. So this is a good resource if you would like to start paying.
Yep.
So the next resource that for us we'll be talking about is The Critical Reader by Erica Meltzer.
So the Critical Reader by Erica Meltzer, it costs around $30, which is on the higher end for SAT books. However, this is extremely useful in terms of the reading section because it teaches you to approach each individual question type. And like Manaf mentioned previously, the questions are essentially recycled, right? So they have basic formattings and they just adjust it based on the passage itself. So Erica Meltzer, she goes through all the different question types, how to approach it, and the different strategies in terms of tackling each of these question types.
So the nice thing about this book is that it's more of a reading book than just a workbook. So these kind of books, instead of buying them, you can just find them in libraries and things like that, and you could just read them and learn the techniques. And so you don't actually have to pay for them. If you'd like to buy them, they're like $30 on Amazon, but it's not necessary. So the next resource that I'll be discussing is 1600.io. So 1600.io is a pretty useful resource because he goes over a lot of the practice tests, and so he solves the entire thing. He offers a free trial, and that one just gives you access to the first 4 practice tests. And so what's important is his techniques, and the different strategies he employs. That's what allowed him to get a 1600, and that's what a lot of other students are using. And it's a resource that not many people know about, but it's definitely useful. And so it starts at $20 per month. I'd recommend just starting with the free tier. It gives you good access to multiple videos for getting started. If you feel that you need more, then you might as well go ahead, maybe buy 1 or 2 months, depending on how far away your SAT test date is.
This is important because these practice exams are the most representative of how the real exam is going to look like.
The next book that we'll be discussing is College Panda. It's a series of books. Frost will be discussing that.
Yeah, so I've actually only had experience with the SAT Math College Panda book. Um, and so the SAT Math book is actually very useful because it goes over every single question type that could possibly be put on the SAT.
Oftentimes, what the SAT will do is present problems with unique way of solving them. For example, in our past videos, we talked about where you have to eliminate the basis to solve for exponents and things like that. And so common techniques like that are things that you should know. And so that when you recognize them in a problem, you can immediately just utilize them, and that speeds up the entire test taking process. And since it's a timed exam, that's very important. And so the College Panda goes over a lot of those techniques and types of problems, and that'll help you identify them and solve them with their appropriate solving techniques. And
Yeah,
so,
also, the SAT, they often word their questions in kind of a hard to understand way, intentionally. And so this book actually kind of makes you familiar with the different ways of wording questions and etc. So that when you're on test day, you're actually familiar with the type of question, what it's asking, and that sort of thing.
And so while we haven't had experience with the College Panda SAT writing and SAT essay books, they've been, according to research on SAT preparation communities and things like that, they're pretty critically acclaimed, and they seem to be pretty effective. So those are also useful if you need extra help on SAT writing and essay. So the last one that I'll be discussing is Dr. John Chung's SAT Math. And so this is a pretty useful book. This one costs about $27. This one, it has a lot of practice tests. And so these practice tests are actually almost a little bit harder than the real exam. And so what's good about that is it kind of prepares you for the exam. And so on test day, you arrive and you find the exam a lot easier than you would expect. And so they have a lot of practice tests, a lot of problems. And he also goes through different types of problems and how to solve them, as well as the different topics on the SAT. And so this is definitely a useful book if you need extra help in SAT Math. So overall, the general theme of this video is that there are some free resources like these two at the top. And then there's also paid resources if you would like to maybe spend some money and get some more education, more practice around the SAT. But there's also ways to get them for cheaper. I mean, I understand like $27 and $30, it adds up when you want to study for all these types of topics. And so you can, for example, go to the library and maybe borrow them from friends, things like that, to just save a little bit of money. Like, I see a lot of people spending way too much money on preparing for the SAT, like buying like $4,000 prep courses that don't actually do too much, when these are the top 7 resources recommended across SAT preparation communities. And so it's not good to waste your money on other resources.
So one thing that's common with a lot of students is that they're only willing to spend a certain amount on SAT preparation, which is fair enough. Obviously, I know people who spent hundreds of dollars and people have spent $50 and have gotten essentially the same score. So um, we rank these in from 1 to 4 based on the relevance and importance of the resource itself. So if you only want to spend, for example, $30, UWorld would probably be the optimal choice for you. Instead of spending it on, for example, Dr. John Chung's SAT Math, UWorld is a particularly good resource because it provides a question bank and allows you to get that necessary practice to really boost your score substantially, right? So we've ranked these in order, and if you're on a limited budget or you're not willing to spend hundreds of dollars on SAT prep material, it would be advisable that you follow this rank relative to your budget.
Furthermore, choose these books based off their specialties. For example, if you noticed that you're struggling in reading, which many people have problems with, Erica Meltzer would probably be the best way to go instead of just buying like college Panda books for everything and things like that. And so you should choose them based off what you need. You don't need to immediately buy everything. And so the SAT is kind of an adaptive studying process in that it varies as you go along, as you realize what you're struggling in. So thank you for tuning into today's episode of Compass to College. If you have any questions, you can email me at MAsif@An-Nisa.org. It's on the screen right now. And we hope to see you in a future video.